Hey, welcome to the Joe Wild Morning Poem Show. I want to talk about the book of Job today. I got my own take on it. You know, it rankles modern people that at the end of Job, God gives him back tenfold everything he's lost, because people saying very reasonably, how can you replace a child that's dead or someone you love, or how can you even heal the trauma of all those tremendous catastrophes that Job is heir to? Well, you can't. But the thing is, if you read the book of Job, you realize that Job does not regain his sense of joy when he's given back everything he lost tenfold. In fact, Job is joyous before a single damn thing is given back to him, because the one thing he's lost. And I'd like to tie it in with what Mary Magdalene says at the tomb, when the man who's Jesus, who she does not recognize, because the risen Christ is only recognized when revealed, and he says, it's Christ or the angel, "Woman, why do you weep?" And she says, "Because they have taken my Lord from me, and I don't know where to find him." And that's what Job loses. To use an army term, the rest of it's collateral damage. It's symptomatic of Job suddenly losing grace. But I guess in the primitive culture they might call mojo, his sense of connection with a higher power. At the same time, he's oppressed by a sense that God is thrashing him. At one point, Job cries out to heaven, "Can't you leave me alone long enough to swallow my own spit?" And curse the womb that bore me. They say that Job never cursed God, but he cursed everything else. Alright? And he insisted on his innocence. Now, preachers will tell you, well, that was the one sin Job had, the sin of pride. But no, he was innocent. Job hadn't done a damn thing wrong. God was bragging about Job like a prize filly to Satan. Now, Satan in the Old Testament is not evil incarnate. What he is the ultimate moralist. In fact, that's what he remains in the New Testament too. Satan doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, he doesn't fuck, he doesn't commit murder, except for souls. All Satan does is live as the ultimate moralist in absolute hatred of God. Because Satan could not submit his infinite sense of morality and of what's right or wrong and what is the law to God. He can't. And I wonder how many times, especially when I've not been able to forgive someone, that I've been Satan the accuser, saying, look, look what they're doing. Or, hey, if they didn't have this or they didn't have that, they wouldn't be so hot. Which is what Satan does in the book of Job. He goes before the throne of God, and God says, "What have you been doing?" And he says, "I've been wandering upon the earth." And God says, "Have you seen my servant Job?" Because God's proud of him. And Satan says, "Well, if you allow me to attack him, I think he'll curse you." And God allows it. He allows Satan to do whatever he wants to Job, short of killing him. But the important thing is, God never, at any point in Job, answers the question of why we suffer. Especially righteous people. Why they suffer. Never. He doesn't even hint at it. all he does is show his majesty. After all the comforters have failed to comfort and said to Job, well, you must have done something wrong. I mean, we've never seen a person suffer this bad. You must have sinned. God takes on the speech of the youngest who speaks last, or who's speaking, and interrupts all the elders and goes on, well, who are you, Job? And God casts them aside. At that point, God speaks from the maelstrom. And he says, where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? When I caught Leviathan by a hook? When the stars sang for joy in the sky? And he just asks a series of questions. Can you create this? Can you do this? And the sheer majesty of God, God's awesome power, his creative power, is enough to restore Job to a sense of gratitude and praise. And Job says, forgive me. Forgive my ignorance. And at that point, Job's kids are dead. His property is confiscated. His own wife is telling him to curse God and die. Job has been attacked bodily. He can't sleep. He has all the symptoms of severe depression. Soul loss. In other cultures, they're smart enough to call it what it is, soul loss. Job feels he's lost his soul. And the way God restores him is by answering the question of suffering with majesty. And I think that's hard for us in this modern world. This contemporary world where, the moral order is always being questioned, yet it's always being enforced. Because one person's immorality is another person's morality, and it's crazy. We've forgotten that when we're really suffering, what we have lost most of all is a sense of majesty, of both our own majesty and the majesty of God in connection to it. So the book of Job tells the truth. There is no answer to suffering, none whatsoever, except majesty, except awe. And how we can root ourselves to that praise. Well, I'm not so sure about that, but I know that that's the point of the book of Job, that we can't really lose anything, that it's all Maya, to quote the Hindus and the Buddhists. It's all illusion. We can't lose anything except our sense of God, of the Godhead, of God's majesty. And read Job. You'll get pissed. You'll get pissed at a God that allows this whole man's family to be slaughtered on a bet with Satan. Basically, a wager. But if you read the story correctly and you think in your own life, when you've been sad, afflicted, beaten down, depressed, brokenhearted, and maybe one little tiny bit of evidence of the full majesty of creation has awakened you to some hope or some sense of comfort. That's what the book of Job is about. That the only answer to suffering is that God will speak to us, through us, in us, and that we are not abandoned. That if there's delay in hearing this voice, it'll come when all other voices are exhausted, when all reasons, all rationales are destroyed. Then awe enters. And in that glory, Job doesn't need a damn thing back because he has the one thing he needed. Just like Mary Magdalene. When Christ reveals himself to her, she falls on her knees and calls out, Rabboni, teacher. And nothing else is necessary after that. I've been thinking about the book of Job for the last few months, and I realized that what I've lost very often is this sense of majesty. I've regained it slowly but surely, and I hope never to lose it completely again.